Hey, it's me.
She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
All right, here we are on a
Hey.
Paul and Ashley episode of Evangelicalish.
A special Sunday edition,
Yes,
which is super cool. And I don't know, maybe we should do Sundays more often.
I know we should. It's almost like having an online church service.
Ooh. Trigger alert, trigger warning.
I can never get over how happy I am to not have to go to church on a Sunday morning anymore.
I
That
know.
spending Sunday mornings in bed is so much better, so
It's
much
really
more refreshing.
Great. It's really great. And I'm
I
super
feel
excited.
evil saying it, but not evil. Sorry,
But
not
it's
sorry.
I know it's not, because like Saturday morning is kind of your get up and go and like do stuff, right? You're still kind of in
Right.
motion from your week. And then so like for us, like Sunday is truly the only day of the week that's just like we can sleep in.
I know.
We let ourselves just
So
sleep and
nice.
sleep and sleep.
Okay, you were going to say something.
Well, I'm excited because when we logged in here, we already had a visitor. Gerald is joining for the first time from Europe, so that's really
Europe.
fun. And then
Where at in Europe, Gerald?
Alex is here from Brisbane, Australia.
Brisbane,
So
Australia. We are international.
representing today. Glad you guys are joining us.
How about that? And we have a daughter who so wants to live in Europe. And maybe
Yes,
since
indeed.
the election, even more.
Amsterdam. Gosh, don't you just hear so
Amsterdam.
many wonderful things about Amsterdam?
Well, I have a very good
All the
friend
time.
who lived in Amsterdam. Joe lived in Amsterdam. Well, he was on our show a while back.
Well, I wonder if Joe and Gerald know each other.
Well, I'm sure not everybody in Amsterdam knows each other.
You know what? Stranger things have happened.
We when I was in high school in Nebraska, we had a foreign exchange student from Brazil, from Sao Paulo, and then the next year we had another foreign exchange student from Rio de Janeiro, and people were asking her if she knew the other foreign
Makes
exchange
perfect
student.
sense. Makes perfect sense.
Like Brazil
Oh.
has millions of people. Sao Paulo's a huge city. Rio's a
Yeah.
huge city. Brazil's a huge country. And people were asking, do you guys know each other? No.
Well, speaking of foreign exchange students, when I was in 6th grade, did I tell you this story before? That I had a crush on a foreign exchange student? Or actually, I think it was like, was he a foreign exchange student or a refugee? I'm not sure. So I was living in Fort Smith, Arkansas in the 80s.
Oh, yes,
So
you have told me this before.
now we know, like, there was a lot of shit going on
It was
in
a
Central
Cuban
America.
refugee, right?
He was Nicaraguan.
Oh, Nicaragua.
And I think his name was Ricardo. And I was really inflamed with him. I had such a huge crush.
Ricardo, that's not the name. I was, the Saturday Night Live skit where they're singing the song at the wedding, and I can't. It's not Ricardo, the guy's name that she ends up with. Anyway,
Okay.
I lost you
Okay.
there.
Hey, so Gerald says that actually just visiting Amsterdam from Chicago. So probably doesn't know our friend Joe Weston, but you could go back and listen to the podcast,
Yes.
which aired a few weeks back, and it would be well worth the listen.
In fact, my Amsterdam hoodie is right around the corner there.
Yes, your favorite hoodie, which I love, and I'm seeking a replacement for because it's got a little hole in it, but it's a
Yeah.
lovely weight. It's hard to find a hoodie that's not
I know it's
sweaty
so
hoodie.
light. I love it because it's so light.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
tie-dye and all that good stuff. I need to mention we are a part of the Choircast network, as are our friends at the Heretic Happy Hour, and we're going to give them a little promo here. Are you tired of mainstream religious podcasts? They say that dodge the real questions. Well, tune in to the Heretic Happy Hour, where they tackle the burning questions, not people. I like that. The main show is every Tuesday, which features panelists like Rainn Wilson. I've seen Rainn around quite a bit on religious shows recently. David Bentley Hart, Lisa Sharon Harper, Bart Ehrman, and many more. A bonus show comes every Friday and a live stream every Sunday in the Heresy After Hours Facebook group. And they're here for all faith seekers ready to challenge the status quo. So subscribe now
Love it.
wherever you get your podcast and join the conversation that is redefining faith.
Love it so
Matthew and
much.
Keith, we
In
love it.
fact, I'm subscribing right now because I have a car trip this afternoon, so I can
Oh.
listen to some happy heretics.
Also, another podcast to check out other than Evangelicalish, which if you're not subscribed, hit subscribe right now.
Oh,
Wherever
I should probably do that too.
Instagram or what have you.
Okay.
The 1946 Cultural Shift tour that I was on in August now has a podcast out. It's a limited series podcast that Sharon Rocky Roggio, who many of you may know from 1946, the movie, which now you can buy and own, by the way, if you go to 1946themovie.com. And Brett, who was one of my homies on the trip, and they are doing a podcast, a limited series podcast that talks about the places we went and the people we met. And I make a couple of appearances on there. So check that out as well.
Have you watched it yet? I haven't watched it.
I poked in on just a little bit yesterday, so I'm going to make sure that I do that now. So you can watch it on YouTube, or it is also available on audio podcast at Apple and such. I'm getting choked up. I don't know why. All right. We have a special edition podcast today.
Yes, we do. And so happy that folks are joining us live on a Sunday, which is great, literally from around the world. And Paul and I, well, we have this really special occasion we're celebrating on Wednesday, so we can't be here live on Wednesday evening. So we wanted to just like jump on, and we thought to ourselves, what would be an interesting way to spark conversation with ourselves and with those of you who are listening. And it occurred to us, wow, why don't we interview each other in a little bit of an ask me anything style of interview. And so I have thought of 5 questions for Paul, and Paul, you have thought of, I don't know how many questions for me. So we are going to
I have 5
blind
as well.
ask. You have 5? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to try this and see how it works.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. On Instagram, joined by Jackson Famous. You remember Famous, who made the jerky? Yeah, so he's joined us on the live stream on Instagram. So hi, Famous. Good to see you. Yeah.
Oh gosh, some of
He
the
made
most
some
delicious
good beef jerky. Yes.
Yep.
Which I can't eat now because of my braces. But
no, you can't. I learned the hard way that you should not like down an entire package of like chili lemon or chili lime flavored beef jerky from Famous. Because I did, and in the moment it tasted so good, I ate the whole thing, and I like burned the skin off my tongue. So,
not a good
exercise
idea.
some discretion. Maybe don't inhale the whole package of chili flavor. Okay.
Good idea. All right. Ask
right.
me anything.
All right, and we're gonna time box this. This is a little bit of like we're gonna have to go quick because I have very big and deep questions for you, and I'm being serious.
And I have a hard time giving concise answers. So
and it's okay. It's okay, but we're gonna have to focus. Okay. So question number 1 for unconventional Pastor Paul. Name a significant light bulb or aha moment in your deconstructing journey. Like not the moment, like, oh, I will now deconstruct, but a significant / light bulb moment.
A significant light bulb moment. I'm trying to think of a really intensively good answer. I'll just go with the one that first came to mind, and it was during my pastoral training with the Vineyard in the Vineyard Leadership Institute training, where the lecturer of the class that I was in was teaching us about the book of Revelation as we were going through our biblical studies. And he asked, how many of you have read the late, or not late great Planet Earth, but whatever the other Hal Lindsey book is. I can't. Yeah,
Was
late
it
great.
19? Wasn't he the 1984 guy or whatever?
No, that was
Oh,
George Orwell. Are you
oh
thinking of the
no, no.
84
The,
reasons Jesus is coming in 84?
never mind. I was so young at the time.
He wrote Late Great Planet Earth, and then like There's a New World Coming or something. And then he had a show where he was talking about current events and showing how it was demonstrating revelation and Jesus was coming any day. And that was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So not quite Hal, but he said, how many of you have read Late Great Planet Earth? Our family had Late Great Planet Earth up on the library shelf, and it was right next to the Bible because it was almost as if the Bible. And then he said, Hal Lindsey got everything wrong. Everything he said about the book of Revelation is wrong. He said, well, maybe he got it right that the book is called Revelation. Other than that, he got everything wrong. And that was an WTF moment for me. Like all of it, everything. He made a point to say, there's not a single thing he said in there that's correct. And that was a moment where I was like, oh, so what I was told about the Bible in this particular case is wrong. What else is wrong? And it really started making me challenge the beliefs of the Bible. Sorry, I'm going to cough real quick.
Well, I remember you taking the Vineyard Leadership Institute courses, and I remember that time in our lives. It was over maybe 2 or 3 year period of time, and it was a time of really rich, I would say, like a deep connecting spiritual season for us. And even though like maybe we would not be pursuing that in the same way today, what you were pursuing, I think, still led us on this path that we're on, that is a very spiritually rewarding and renewing thing. But I remember when you were taking that, and just like, yeah, it was a profound and powerful time. And what's interesting to me to hear you say that is like, it's not like you were walking around at that time. This is, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. You weren't walking around espousing the late great planet Earth theories and concepts. There was never a time in your like public Christian life or whatever that you were ever talking like that. But it's interesting to me that still that book and like that, like us being exposed to it as kids, grade school, junior high, high school, it made such an impact, right? Like I never read it, but I for sure thought it was true, even though I didn't know what was in it. Because it just shows you, it's just like culturally, it was so stamped for approval,
Yeah. And there was always that thing, certainly in the Swearingen household growing up, like, thank goodness Jesus is coming soon.
Yeah.
What would we do in this terrible world if Jesus wasn't coming soon? And, thank God, I lament where the Vineyard has gone now, because like so many others, it's really gone under pressure from the big mega churches that give most of the money to the denomination, even though they say they're not a denomination. They've gone very right-leaning.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
They've gone, I did not know that.
Some of the more heavily social justice focused churches of the Vineyard have had to leave the Vineyard because the pressure of the moneyed churches in the Vineyard. But I'm so grateful that we got involved in the Vineyard, because they really did give us a perspective of a church being much more focused on caring for our fellow man, rather than just caring about, let's get them saved and get them to heaven. And that's it,
Well, for me, the sort of soaking, like the roots that got really soaked in me in the Vineyard was less about the social justice stuff, because that came a little bit later. And for me, it was about like being around people who really believed that there was authentic and perfect love as expressed by Jesus, and like nothing mattered except making that connection.
Yeah.
And they were willing to be weird. They were willing to be messy. They were willing to be socially unacceptable. And they opened the door. I think that time in the Vineyard, opened the door to a heart for change, and that I think has contributed to a lot of the positive stuff that I think is like the dam bursting on religion.
Yeah.
They may not claim credit for it or anything like that, and it's just one of many, many things. But I think that seed got planted in us through the vineyard.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? For Ashley and I, we have sort of this mantra vision of a dam holding back. In our city, we have a dam that killed our river. So we just have sort of a trickle of what used to be a very major river. And we've always kind of thought of that dam as a symbol of religion holding back good things that human beings can do. And that we've had that vision, and that sort of showed us what that was like. And the origin story of the vineyard, although we may not agree with everything, but John Wimber, sort of the person that kind of started the movement that became the vineyard, his origin story really was reading the Bible and saying, when do we get to do this stuff that's in here? When do we?
Yeah.
This Jesus guy's amazing. When do we do what he did? And
just kind of unfiltered pursuit of divine love and connection. Yes.
And what would happen if we read the Gospels and said, okay, let's try to do what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Rather than let's go take over the government or something.
That's right.
It would be amazing.
That's right. Isn't it fun? Okay. So, wow, that was a nice little tangent. And I know folks who listen here, there's an interesting little subculture of ex-vineyardites. So that's kind of fun. Okay. Question 2. What is one book you would recommend for anybody just starting their deconstructing journey besides your own? What is one other book that you would recommend?
No question. The novel Religiously Wrong would be.
Get the commercial over. It's over my left shoulder for anybody
you
watching.
got it right there.
Somebody else's book that you would recommend.
Well, I almost always suggest the same book to this question, and it's Searching for Sunday by Rachel Held Evans. Such a good book of. I just love how heartbroken she was to leave her religious heritage behind. And I think it was helpful to me because, I'm probably the type of person who's like, fuck it, let's burn it down,
Probably that type of person. Oh, Jesus.
And by the way, I believe that type of person is a gift to the world. I am a gift to the world in that. But it's helpful and beautiful to read about somebody who is so brilliant, and she was a church-based blogger at the time, and blogging was a very big thing. And she went through her deconstruction of faith very publicly through this blogging time, and very painfully. And the way she writes about how heart-wrenching it is to leave faith behind and community behind. And the line that always gets me is as they tell their pastor they're leaving their church, and as they're driving away, she's bawling her eyes out. She says to her husband, who's going to bring us casseroles when we have a baby? And that line just gets me to think about.
Oh God, it makes me cry. And what is, I think, expressed in her writing, that book being a seminal work, but her other writing is, again, to me, an example of just this unabashed heart for this promise of divine love and connection in the form of Jesus. And so just another example of somebody who just threw their life towards that, right? Like hurtled their life towards that belief that that's possible. And what a beautiful expression her life was.
Yeah, I love that.
And continues to be.
Now, of course, I would recommend Jamie Marich's book that I just finished, You Lied to Me About God. It's very much mental health focused. And I also love YouTubing atheists now, as you well know. Mm-hmm. Alex O'Connor particularly is one I really love, because I think he's a very sweet-hearted, former Christian, now atheist, brilliant young man who knows the Bible in and out, and is very good at saying, he's very respectful and humble toward the Bible, but saying, here's where it doesn't add up. And all of those things have allowed me to rekindle a love of the Bible, which I've always had a love of the Bible, and to be able to say, here's where the Bible isn't, proves it isn't inerrant. It isn't this thing that I have to consistently prove every word was written by the finger of God, but it has amazing wisdom and love and joy and divinity that we can glean from these writings of men. And it's okay that it's not perfect. It shouldn't be perfect. It should have contradictions in it because it was written by more than 60 different men over generations, and of course it's going to have contradictions. But when we know that, and we know the purpose of the writers as best we can, then we can really start to glean what is meant to be gleaned from each of the different writings, rather than some box that we were put in by a controlling religion that told
Right.
us we have all truth.
And which, by the way, is a more recent expression of the Christian, like the Western Christian faith.
Yeah.
Like people think that, well, I was certainly taught that what I was being taught as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old is what was always the expression of Christianity in the history of time. And it's absolutely not true. It's only a very short window of time in the big scheme of things that this has been the Western Christianity has been the sort of dominant expression of Christianity. So anyway, okay.
Let me, I know, but let me just say real
fine.
quick, think about it. We talked about the movie Wicked, you, me, and Dr. Marich on the
Yep.
podcast that everybody needs to go listen to today. And each of us had come away with something different from watching the movie Wicked. Yet we're supposed to read the Bible and all believe the exact same takeaway from all of those different things.
Right.
It's
Right.
insane.
That's a really good way to put it, because like if you were like, the only thing you should be focused on about Wicked is the fact that Ariana Grande looked great in this one dress. Like
Yeah.
you'd be like, no, there's a million other things to think about and talk about and be excited about. Yeah, that's a great point. Okay.
It is literally
question-
don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. Literally, that's what the evangelical interpretation of the Bible is.
Now,
Okay.
I'm in charge. You need to follow my lead here. Okay, question number 3. Let's see, how should I phrase this? When you think back on your 10 years of pastoring, during which time you preached from the pulpit at least 75% of the time, name one thing you regret teaching from the pulpit, if any.
It's so hard. I mean, I'm just feeling my heart sink even thinking about it. I know the thing I regret more than anything is not just taking us to be an affirming church. We were a side B church. We were come queer people. We love you. We want you to come. And then we had an agenda. We had a curtain behind which they couldn't advance. And I truly believe those type of churches are more harmful, as ours proved to be with one of our friends, than the churches that say, excuse my language, but fags go to hell. At least queer people know to stay away from those churches, the really horrible IFB churches. They came to ours and they hear horrible things. I never said things, but I know other people said from our stage, I love gay people just like I would love the alcoholic or the drug addict or the prostitute. And those are terrible things to say. So that's my biggest regret as a pastor, of not saying we're an affirming church, period. If you don't like it, there's the door.
Do you remember thinking at that time that was in fact your view, or was your view kind of like, I don't really know, and so I'm going to kind of keep going with the predominant flow here in the tradition of evangelical churches? Or were you
You're really asking me to tell on myself now.
Were you certain that was the wrong perspective at the time and you did not say that, or did you not know? what was right?
I can remember having a conversation with our staff and asking them, why couldn't a gay person lead a small group? And they were stunned. They were like, why couldn't they? Like it was such a given that a gay person couldn't lead a small group. And I was like, why? And I capitulated to it because I was afraid to really what I would lose in that. And, they asked me, would you officiate a gay wedding? And it had just been so beaten into me by the system. I was like, in my heart, I would gladly have officiated a gay wedding then. But because of the damage it would have done to our church, I wouldn't have. I would have said no and thought that I was doing the right thing to protect our church body. And now I just think that's horrifying. I understand that version of me that would say that, but I think it's horrifyingly wrong. Horrifyingly wrong. Makes
Now
me
I feel
so angry
I know.
at that
I feel
person.
like acid in my stomach right now
But
because
it
I was
actually makes me more angry that at the people in the seats who made me afraid to do what was right in that moment.
yeah. Right. Oh gosh. Bringing up
I
a lot of memories
remember,
for me right now.
and I know these are good people that were trying to do the right thing, but we were writing a new set of bylaws for our 501c3, and somebody gave us a template, and it had like these statements of beliefs, and it was like, Jesus Christ crucified, sacraments, don't do gay marriage. We're like
Yeah.
the top 3 of this list of, and I'm
Right.
like telling our board, there is no way that 3rd bullet point should be in there. There is no way that is
Right.
equal to Christ crucified and the sacraments. And everybody's like, yeah, but we've got to protect ourselves. And I'm like, I will not allow that to be in. But we had to make the compromise of, well, let's put it down somewhere else in the bylaws. So it was literally in the bylaws of our church that queer people, I don't know if it said they couldn't be Christians, but they couldn't, marry. It was a sanctity of marriage statement. And
Yeah.
it's
I think that
bullshit.
was I don't think it was a
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. You can't be a Christian. I know I wouldn't have allowed that. But
right.
yeah,
That's interesting that that's your response because as I was thinking about what I thought your answer might be to that question, I was thinking through, I was doing the little, what was the Viewmaster? I was doing like Viewmaster in my mind of like all the different sermons and the overall expression and intent and like kind of what you represented as you were in the pulpit. And like, I was like, God, I can't think of one thing, not
oh
one thing,
really?
because you were a very powerful and compelling storyteller and like force of like this whole, like kind of what we were talking about the other 2 questions, like pursuing this divine love at all costs. But I had kind of put that part of us because that was absolutely me too. And even more so, I kind of put that out of my mind. So yeah, that's a very honest response. Okay. I'm going to keep
We
going.
prayed for demons to leave people. I think
Yeah.
I
Oh
probably
God,
harmed
that's a
some
regret.
people with that, and even altar calls I regret because I think they were manipulative. We played mood setting music behind it and did mood. Yeah. I regret so much of that. So much of that.
Our altar calls were not like turn or burn though. It was just
No,
more like
absolutely not.
come and get prayer type of deal. Yeah.
But
Okay.
there were a few times I felt it to do the, come and be converted and go to heaven in a very gentle way, not the way I heard growing up, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it was manipulation unintentionally, not malice in any way, but manipulative nonetheless. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel bad about it. I repent on behalf of that past me for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's
My questions are
rewind.
not nearly this good, by the way. You're
Well,
really good at this. Go ahead.
So this is my Oprah Winfrey watching Oprah with my mom every summer when she was off teaching duty. So I was trained by the best, Oprah and Phil
Okay.
Donahue. Okay.
And Ruth Ann Newton.
Yeah. Okay, rewind 10 years. How old are you now? 58, 59?
59.
59. So imagine your 49-year-old self. So 2024. So Christmas 2014. I don't know if there was anything in particular to think about that Christmas. Anyway,
I
2014.
remember my 50th birthday, so it was a pretty shitty time.
Around so the year before that, okay.
Yeah.
Now, what would you tell that person that you now know? What would you want that person to know?
like look the fuck out. It was not so far after that time, maybe 2016, that part of me felt like we heard the voice of God say, "Get ready, your life is about to completely change." I don't know if you
Yes.
remember that.
I absolutely remember that.
And I remember saying, but it's not like a bad thing, it's like a happy thing. It's not going to be one of those, really horrible things. And God was that fucking wrong.
Yeah. And I remember being like, yay, change. It's so great. We should always do that. Ugh.
So yeah, I think so. I just put out a new newsletter email today in eInspire and said at the end of it all, I'll take the messiness of life as it is today over the comfy cleanness of life as it was in the certainty of evangelicalism. And that is true. That is true, because nurseries are messy and cemeteries are neat. And nurseries have life and possibility, and cemeteries have death. And so, yeah, I would tell that self, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun, but it is worth it. And
Yep.
I'm still telling this self it because we don't know if it's worth it yet either.
Right.
But we're saying that out of some belief, some evidence, but some belief that it will be worth it to
Right.
lean into the messiness of our humanness.
So I was imagining that is what I too would say to myself 10 years ago. It's going to require everything of you and it will be worth it. And the problem is the 10-year ago version of me would have been like, yeah, sister, like I'm all in, like the words I feel my heart has been aligned to, like, do the hard thing. It's worthwhile, pursue divine love at all costs, like tear down the structures and rebuild, in a reform. I mean, I would have thought at that time that I was doing that. And I would have said, if you would have asked for a commitment card from me at that time, like, hey, no details, but just like, are you willing to like really double triple down on what you say your life is about? I would have been like, hell yeah, give me the card. I'm already doing it. I can't imagine it's going to be harder or more. And now where I sit, it's like, no, I mean, short of death, short of losing a loved one prematurely. And I did lose my mom prematurely. But like, it is, ooh, it is.
Well, it happens to be one of my questions for you, and maybe we could
Okay, but I still have one more quick fun question for you.
Okay. You want to go ahead and do that?
Okay, quick fun question. So we're going to have to, then we'll get back into our deep, meaningful conversation in a second. Okay. Number 5, last question for you. Name your favorite soloist from the original Band-Aid video.
You're jumping into our other.
I am, but this is just a quick, like your favorite soloist from the original song.
Oh, it's got to be Boy George,
Okay.
But in our world of plenty, I just love that.
And what
just
I
love
love when
it.
he's like, "Oh," they give him the little, like, chiming in type of thing. I love
But
it.
how do you just pick one? It's like picking your favorite child. You just can't do it, Paul Young and Bono and oh my
Oh,
gosh, how do you pick one? It's
wow.
such a great song with so many great singers. It's crazy to try and pick one.
Okay. Well, there you go. We did it. You
Okay.
survived my interrogation.
Okay. Well, I had the fun one up front, but now maybe I'll move it to the end. So,
Okay.
so, um, so my first question is, what did you dream of being as a child? And Don asked a really good question in the comments, and we may get to that. We hope we can get to that in a bit here, Don. What did you dream of being as a child, and how does it compare to who you are today?
Well, so there's sort of three parts to that answer. First, when I was a child, like grade school, I'll say, I had a trauma background that my whole thing was like, just try to survive.
Mhm.
And so I was like, I knew I had to get an education. I knew I had to get a college degree and just like get a job, any job to try to put food on the table. That was, I had no visions of, what career path I might
And
choose.
you were feeling that at a very young age because
Oh
your
yeah.
dad lost his job, right?
Well, but that came a little bit later. I think now
Okay.
looking back on it, but there was always this fear of like not having enough. And I think that was a generational, I like the sort of
Oh, right.
waterfall of depression era grandparent, great grandparent that sort of just it was like generational burden trauma type of deal. And just this extreme pressure to fit in, get along, go along, succeed, that sort of thing. So
Okay.
I didn't know anything that I didn't know what the options were. I just knew like I'd better put my head down and work and try to get a paycheck. And then probably two, maybe sort of by high school, I was imagining I wanted to be in business. They couldn't have said more about that, but just like, yeah, I think I'm going to study business. And I had a vision of myself like working on a laptop and flying in an airplane. That seemed like if that person would be successful. If you had
Okay.
a job that would let you fly and you would have a laptop
Those were
computer.
symbols of
Yeah,
success.
that's right. And then
And you didn't know of cell phones yet, so you didn't know, like,
I
that
did
would
not.
be
No,
yeah,
heavens no. Now my friend's dad did have a car phone.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
knew there was like briefcase phones, but that's that.
You had to
And
be
then what
mega wealthy to have those, though,
and they were
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah. What was the last part of your first question?
And how does who you wanted to be as a child compare to who you are now?
Oh,
Would that child be impressed with who you are?
I think so. I think the road I found professionally, which is really personal too, is so much fun and is like I'm pretty amazed that I get to do the kind of work that I get to do because it's this blend of business and community. So it's sort of like my faith background and decades and decades of like quote intercessory prayer for my place, like that weaving together with systems working and businesses thriving and people having access to opportunity. It's like a lot bigger than I could have ever imagined. So I love that.
Yeah, and you have a laptop and you fly around the country a lot. So
Never, and I'm never not, as we are all now on our laptops all the time.
yeah, or on
Yeah,
some device.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what is it like being a brilliant woman, smarter than most of the men you're around in a male-dominated world, and do you still have imposter syndrome nonetheless?
Well,
And it is inarguable that you're smarter probably than many of the people you're around. You may argue on the most part, but
let me say this. Most of the men that I'm around now in my niche of work, I would say I don't sit in those rooms thinking to myself like, "Oh, for God's sake." I feel like I'm around really, really, really brilliant people, men and women. So I don't feel this way as much anymore. I do think when I was in politics and government, I did have that feeling. And back then, I think I did have more of an imposter syndrome. And I don't like, so I was 36 to 44. Those were the years that I was serving as mayor of the fifth largest city of California as an elected executive, strong mayor. So it was a big role. I don't think at the time I realized that there was a lot of misogyny in the water. And I think because I had imposter syndrome, I was kind of like responding to that misogynistic view of me and my work and my colleagues who are females of like, well, oh, they're kind of right. Maybe we don't quite have it right. And so
Mm,
always going double and triple overtime to make sure we were accurate, successful, effective. So I think the imposter syndrome drove me, and I didn't realize that I was actually pushing back on a misogynistic culture.
mm, yeah.
Now I see it much more than I did back then. And it makes me angry, to be honest. It makes me really angry.
Mm, yeah, as well it should. And so I guess you're saying politics don't always attract our best and brightest?
You know, I think it's different at organizational culture. Like you could find these pockets of brilliance in little public agencies in rural parts of Central California. Then you're just like, God, there's this culture, this expectation, and this standard that's so high. Like it's impressive and exciting. I think working in public sector government stuff, I'm always overwhelmed by people's commitments to not everybody, but there's like this yeah, we're here because we really do care. So I love that. And then kind of like weeds in a garden, there are plenty of people who are like, no, I don't care. I'm here just to get the paycheck. I don't think it's the norm. I think it's the bad reputation. And then the people in elected office, again, it's just fair, it varies. Like you'll find some of the most exceptional people, and then you'll find people who are self-serving and ambitious and, all of the stuff you'd find in any other sector.
I remember the night you got elected to your first term as mayor, and your consultant said to me, she's the first client I've ever had who wanted the job.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And what that meant was everybody he had helped get elected before that, they wanted the next job. They were getting elected to this job so they could get to the next job. They didn't care about this job. And you, on the other hand, really wanted to be mayor of Fresno to try and make a difference in people's lives. And that's one of the saddest statements I've ever heard in my life. And I hope it's not true about every elected official, but a sad statement nonetheless. Yeah.
Yes. Also, his client pool was probably his client pool would be and therefore it's true of all people. No,
Yeah.
okay.
He was
But yeah,
attracting a particular pool.
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Here's what we were kind of digging into before. So, what would you tell that younger version of yourself who was preparing to get married to
Mm,
this person,
mm.
knowing what you know now?
Well, it's okay. So in my mental health journey, and like the parts of me that I've spent time with, and I'm not dissociated, my system's not dissociated, but I subscribe to the idea that like all humans have parts of them. So I spend a lot of time talking to, I call her my 21-year-old bride self. So I was 21, I turned 22 just a couple months before we got married. So so I like that part of me that's kind of stuck in that time um has needed some healing work, and that's why she shows up and why we spend time together. And she's like, I feel like I've kind of resolved a lot of things through that work. What would I tell her? Huh. I mean, maybe it's some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. Like, yeah, it's like what you're signing up for. It's going to be hard. Well beyond what you are even imagining. Um, but the pursuit and that flame is is the right thing. It's like, go for it, fan the flame, go for it. And I think that's probably what I also have this. You and I have talked about this quite a bit. I have like I think my soul is pretty adventurous. And then I think there are parts of me that slow that down or put caution on that, or pragmatic, whatever. And maybe I would say to that part, that self version of me, don't govern that adventurous soul as much.
Mm.
Like I think I could probably have, I don't know, fed that sense of adventure more.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we, govern ourselves in so much, and I'm really convinced there needs to be times in life when we sit and think, okay, who am I now compared to who I used to be, and what does that mean
Right.
in my life and my relationships and things? And
Yeah.
I think we're having conversations along those lines that so many of us never have, because we've been taught, just placate and keep things cool and all those things. And so,
And I
yeah,
think in an ideal, because it's a little hard for me to answer the question, in large part because I feel like I have had those conversations with my
yeah,
younger self, and like it's like each era just kind of keeps going, okay, and like packs up and moves forward to the next, to the next, to the next. So I feel like um I feel I feel like a lot of that, I don't know that I would necessarily be like, you should think something different, because yeah, she needed to feel that way and think that
right.
way to get us where we are now, and like
Ugh,
I'm happy with where we are now.
so good. And so, yeah, it's not really even a hypothetical conversation. It's really important that we have those conversations with the parts of ourself from the other parts of our life. I love that. Um, so you talk a lot about divine love. What does divine love mean to you?
Mm. So, oh gosh, I'm getting emotional because it's a feeling. So I think I definitely I see like a liberated Jesus when I think of divine love. And like, I see a Jesus that is not chained by everything that, culture has put on Jesus. And I also see like, kind of like, I don't know if I would say it's like the, oh gosh, just this vast, beautiful, expansive presence slash fog slash galaxy. I mean, I don't know. Do you know? Like, I also I don't think about divine love as just a person. I think of divine love like some people, like in quantum physics, they would talk about the energy field, or they would talk about like antimatter, and just the always there. You just have to like switch your frame of reference to be like, oh, boom, there it is. This presence, that I don't know exactly what the presence is. I think it's something we're all dialed into. I think we can access that at, more times than others. I think we can contribute to it. I think we can like block the flow of it. So that's kind of how I'm experiencing spirituality right now. And so for me, like what used to be maybe like an intercessory kind of prayer model, where I feel I'm like taking on this sort of savior warrior thing and like petitioning the throne room of God. And I'm switching that from, I haven't felt that way in a long time. Instead, it's just like an awareness of that presence that is, and I always just say to myself, like, it's real and it's true and it's available. And so then I just try to focus in on that. And in that process, it's like there's a little surrender happening of my things, my needs, my agenda. That sort of dials down, and just the awareness and exposure to, um, what I imagine is just like being surrounded by by perfect love is what is like renewing and regenerating for me. So that's like some people would call it meditation. I probably call it meditation as well, but I think it's also prayerful. So it's this blend of kind of prayer, contemplative prayer and meditation is how I feel I have access to that divine love.
So
So probably,
explain the
yeah.
difference between meditation and prayer to you.
I mean, I can't. I don't know.
Okay.
I could like
Okay.
Google it and be like, it's just, this is all just like my personal kind of pulling in different ideas and things that I'm reading or thinking about or hearing other people talk about. And
I
so
guess
I don't know that you do have to make a distinction. I
Okay.
can definitely distinguish between like petitioning prayer
right.
versus openness, prayerful meditation, having value for and holding this expectation of like you want to be in touch with the divine love that you carry and that other people carry. I think that's maybe a good way to distinguish.
I love that. And I love, what's really amazing about you is to have this brilliance and be able to push back on this male world and misogyny and still have that soft heart underneath it all, that you just cry at the thought of divine love. I think that's what makes you beyond great of other people. And I've always just thought that this ability that you have with this soft heart makes you really dangerous to the
Thank
world.
you. Well, thank you for saying that. I see those two things together because I feel like there is this higher perfect love, divine love, this higher thing when I'm sitting in a room with a dumbass who is who is who is serving himself. I don't mind I don't mind when someone sits there ignorant of something. My God, that's me 1,000 times a day. I'm
Yeah.
talking about a self-serving asshole who is abusing power that they have been given by their, the electorate. And it could be a female person too. So like I just hate that like power abuse thing. When I'm sitting there and I'm encountering that, it is so easy to be like, oh, like you're so missing it. Like this sort of when divine love shows up, everything changes and just you're not in touch with that. And it's what gives me the ability to navigate through those moments because I'm like, no, we gotta get to that. We gotta let that into the room.
Yeah. And let me say it this way. I was driving the car and you were on the phone with somebody in a political circle.
One of my good friends.
Yes. And all of a sudden you're like, that's not fucking good enough. That's not fucking good enough. You're better than that. You're better than you just start ripping this person a new asshole.
Yeah.
And that person today is still a very good friend of yours.
Yes.
That's who you are.
And he deserved it. 1, 2, and it just goes to show his good heart that he would be yelled at like that by me and choose to like eat the meat, spit out the bones, and choose to see past the offense of like somebody is blowing him up with F-bombs on the phone. And you know what I mean? Like, so that's a tribute to him as well.
And maybe it would help people to give the background was you had provided the data to say this is the best decision, and the other person had agreed that it was the best decision, but felt like couldn't because it was a politically dangerous vote for him.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not good enough. You've got to vote for the right thing, even when it's harmful to your politics. And yeah, that was pretty good. All right. We finished with the fun thing. We're about out of time anyway. Who was your childhood crush? Celebrity crush?
Oh, besides the Nicaraguan exchange student?
Yes, not the Nicaraguan. Refugee.
Refugee Ricardo. So I had crushes all the time. I was like, do you want to know the most embarrassing one?
Oh, I know the most embarrassing one, but yes, you can share it with
Okay, so
the rest of the world.
I'm going to give you 2. to
Okay.
maybe, the first is so humiliating. I'm hoping the second will redeem myself a little bit. I'm
Why
not kidding you
humiliating? Why is it humiliating?
because I don't know. I've shared this
You
with some
know
of my
people are
former
gonna laugh.
colleagues. It's
Yeah.
pretty funny. When
Okay.
I was like 5 years old, 6 years old, we got to watch Little Rascals. And, which was filmed in what, like the
The
1940s or something
20s.
like that?
No,
The
I think it was
20
like
was
the
it the
20s.
20s? My
Yeah.
god, like, that's incredible. I had the biggest crush on Spanky.
What? Spanky was cute. He was smart. Why wouldn't
But
you have a
if you
crush on
look back
Spanky?
and look at Spanky, he's like a little round, egg of a kid with these knickers on and, a
Better
little
than having
beanie.
a crush on Alfalfa, I think.
That's true. No, but honestly, I felt like I felt like I was alfalfa. I felt very nerdy and freckly and like that my hair was sticking out. I felt awkward. I could identify more with alfalfa and I had a huge crush on Spanky because he was a strong leader. This was
Okay.
my thinking as a 5-year-old. Okay, my maybe this will redeem me a little bit. By the time Karate Kid came out, I think I was in when would a Karate Kid have come out? Like, I was probably 6th grade, 7th grade.
It would have been like 84 maybe, somewhere around
Okay,
there?
so, yeah,
83?
I was 6th, 7th grade.
Was I in high school when it came out? I don't
I
remember.
had the hugest crush on Ralph Macchio.
Ah,
Like, that was a time when all the teen magazines, you could buy at the grocery store, like Teen Beat and things like that, and, like, those were really popular, and, like, our parents would sometimes let us
yeah.
buy these magazines and I would always buy that one and every girl would like cut out the picture they liked and we'd have these pictures up all over our room, see Thomas Howell and da 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 da. Well, mine
Yeah.
was Ralph Macchio and it was a little bit like I had an agreement among my friend group that well you can like Pony Boy and you can like so and so and you can like so and so, but I get Ralph Macchio. He's mine, and I never
Wait,
knew if it was Macchio or Macchio.
wasn't Ralph Macchio Pony Boy?
But whatever, one of the who
The
was C.
Outsiders?
Thomas Howell in The Outsiders?
Oh,
They all
maybe
have their
see.
nicknames.
You may be right. Maybe C. Thomas Howell was Pony Boy. Yeah.
I think that was Pony Boy.
All right. Gerald says that Karate Kid was 84.
Yeah, so I was 12. So
Okay.
anyway, I mean that was a very hard, intense. Like for years, I had a huge crush on him.
Now, wasn't Macchio was probably like 23 or 24
Oh,
or
at
something like
least,
that
at least.
Yeah.
That was always the
Yeah.
thing. It was so weird that he came off so young as an older, at
Yeah.
that time, older actor.
By the way, I have to show our friend Bob Prater has a video up on YouTube that he found from like a antique store by a video of Ralph Macchio doing a screen test, I think for Karate Kid. And the voice off camera is Phil Hartman doing the read with him or something. So yeah, I'll have to show
That's
that to you
wild.
sometime. That's crazy. Do you know who my celebrity crush was as a kid?
Christy McNichol.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did I guess right?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
when she was Buddy on some
Mhm.
show, I don't remember the name of it, and then
Oh, the one from the
it was one of those
Fast
cheesy
Times at
kinda.
her, but also you liked Phoebe Cates.
Oh, Phoebe Cates, get out of here. I was a senior in high school then, though. But
Yeah.
so I went from Christy McNichol to Valerie Bertinelli,
Yeah.
and still love Valerie Bertinelli. When she married Eddie Van Halen, it was just like so
Yeah.
heartbreaking for me. That was
Do
terrible.
you know, I used to pretend that I was Christy McNichol.
Oh, really?
Yes, when I was in grade school.
She was in the movie
definitely
Little Darlings,
well,
and
that was a dirty movie. I
it
didn't
was a
see
dirty
that.
movie.
Yeah, I was just going off of the 80s TV show that she was in, but I would pretend like I was her when I was at gymnastics. Yes.
And she was the one that everybody thought was the bad girl, but didn't actually have sex. And, the other one, I can't think of her name, Hemingway, she acted like the
Yeah.
good girl, but she did have sex.
She was, yeah,
that
she was, it was such an injustice. I do
Yeah.
recall
Yeah,
that
it was terrible.
storyline.
Terrible. And then in college, the crush was Susanna Hoffs, without question,
Well, who is that? I don't remember.
from the lead singer of the Bangles. The one who always looked out of the
Oh,
corner of her eyes.
okay. Oh, yeah. Well, good choices. I love those, that
And
band.
here,
Okay.
Terrestrial Traveler says Davy Jones from the Monkees. Yeah, he was.
Yep, I was definitely noticing Davy Jones. When Davy Jones was on Brady Bunch, I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I do want to acknowledge Don Gross, who's in our live feed here, saying she had a heart attack and 4 stents put in
Mm,
and was lamenting, like we were talking about, searching for
oops.
Sunday. Oh my gosh, it covers
Sorry.
up the whole screen because it,
Me too. I was trying to
for
read the
those
whole thing.
watching the live stream. But yeah, this is a problem. She's talking about that, nobody called when she's in the hospital or after. It's like she says, it's like I don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And our culture, as our Brit friends always told us, is so bad at community. American culture does not promote community. The only community we really have in the US is church. And and we need to fix it. I mean, I guess we have PTA, I guess we have youth sports, but all of those are temporary and mobile, and we don't really have parks per se. We don't really have gathering spaces. It's just, and so a lot of people are very lonely. So Don, I
Yep.
just acknowledge that and send you our heart and sit with you as best we can from afar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then making like the terribly punishing thing about this church-based community culture is the religion that says if you differ from the community, you're essentially excommunicated. It's a
Yeah.
soft excommunication, but it's just the receding of like, oh, you're not in our tribe anymore. And so you don't matter, you're wrong, you're bad, you're cast out. So um
Yeah.
yeah,
Gerald says here, every church I attended, I was a commodity and not a part of a community. And that's what I would tell my 10-year senior pastor of a church is like, very few of these people are still going to be your friend when you're not here anymore. It's okay. You're going to be okay. Yeah, the problem with church community is once you don't agree with the belief system, you're out, man. You're out.
yeah.
And that's tough. Yeah.
Well, we've gone a little long today, and I wonder
Yeah.
if we probably need a wrap because I actually have
Yeah.
to
You got to go.
travel for work today, so I got to go.
And it's a
But
little foggy here in Central California still. So we want you to have
yeah,
plenty of
better get on
drive
the
time.
road.
So we'll talk
Um,
about Band-Aid and do they know it's Christmas turning 40 next time.
in the meantime, maybe we can just like post it everywhere on all of our social media channel. Just like it's just so fun to go back and watch the 40-year-old video and the new one and the remake. Like just enjoy seeing that. We watched that this morning and I literally was like almost crying. It was just so fun to see that.
I was just thinking to, and you may not totally agree with this, but do they know it's Christmas kicks the ass all over the place of We Are the World. I'm sorry. It's
Do you
so
mean
much a
that in
better song.
the song? What makes you say that?
The song is so much better. So much better.
Just because the rhythm, the sound, the da 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 da, all the
Yeah, I've
things.
never
Yeah, I
really
think that's
loved the
true.
song We Are the World that much.
Yeah.
I love the idea of it. I love the singers in it. But Do They Know It's Christmas is just a badass pop song,
I
period.
love that. Now, I will say, in defense of We Are the World, there are some artistic riffs that are fantastic. Like that you don't, like you would not want to throw that baby out with the bathwater.
In We Are the World.
Yeah. Just some
Like
little solo riffs
when
that
you're down and out and there seems no hope at all. If you just believe, that's Huey Lewis there, and there's
yeah.
nowhere we can fall. And then
I feel like
Cyndi Lauper
that's
jumps in. Yeah,
oh
that's a great part.
yeah, like that song gives a little more room for that sort of creative
But there's still
expression.
nothing
Okay.
like the bong. It's Christmas time. Yeah, you just
Yes.
can't beat that. Sorry.
All right, friends,
Okay,
we got to
all. We
wrap
love you.
here. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're listening all the way to the end, thank you so much. Don't forget to support, subscribe. We love our community and are looking forward to building it together in 2025. And that means that you got to sign up for free newsletters if you subscribe on our channels. And then, of course, we're always looking for support, $5.99 a month. I'm going to petition Paul that we should lower that to $4.99 a month. There's something about a 5 is the first number that feels bigger than a 4 and harder. So I think in 2025 we push down to $4.99, and then it's super easy for people to sign up, be like, yeah, sure, why not? Less than
You
a
think
cup of
there are a lot of
coffee.
people are like, oh, if this was $4.99, I'm in.
I do.
But because it's
It's like,
$5.99, no.
yes, it's psychological. Well, we could ask our listeners to give us their input in a
Give us
sneaky
your
way to
input.
get them to consider what it would take to get them to provide
Yeah.
some monthly
Let
support.
us know if you like a Sunday stream. We won't do every Sunday, by God, no, because Sundays are too precious. But maybe, what if we did like a once a month or something like
It was fun. And I think also what's fun is just you and me talking is the
Yeah.
fun part, which we've
Yeah.
been having so many amazing guests. Definitely check out, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and check out the guests we've been having. And they've been just incredible these last 3-4 months. So listen and enjoy, but also like it's fun just to talk, the two of us.
And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe and all those things I'm supposed to say on YouTube. So
Okay, everyone, have a great week.
take care
We'll see you soon.
and enjoy our trip up to the holiday seasons. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.